And of course, Enoch himself could have said no before 687 from Adam, in which case there wouldn't have been a Methuselah. Now I have to cover Methuselah. Here's Methuselah right here. Let's give him a red. Okay, I'm going to use a smaller. Okay, Methuselah was born in 687, so we'll put in his name here. He too had to mature because look, even though Enoch's got 1,000 years that goes on, let's go back to yellow, Enoch got a 1,000-year time grant when Methuselah was born. And that goes all the way here. Okay, but look how the 490 ends before the 1,000. So Methuselah is the guy, and I didn't mention him much in the last video. I sort of covered him over. But Methuselah himself had to get that 490 in order for time to be bridged. It's true that Enoch won it, but look, 1177, I did that wrong, let's fix it. In 1177, that's 490. So Methuselah had to win one himself by 1177. 687, I think I did it right. Okay, 687 plus 490 is 1177. So Enoch's 490, even though he's got 1,000, his 490 runs out by 1177. So Methuselah had to get his own 490 by then, and he did, because it's going to take a while to load, I think. Maybe not. This is the Junior's XLS worksheet, you know, because I sometimes forget. In 874, Methuselah had his kid when he was 187 years old. So by 874, which is way in advance of 1177, Methuselah won a time grant. Now actually, it looks like he won 2 of them back to back. Alright, because the flood doesn't occur until 1656 down here. Alright, that's when Shem's kids are born, just after the flood actually. But here's the flood. See, Methuselah means the flood occurs when he dies. And so if he got his first award in 874, he probably got another one, because this is more than 490 years later. Okay, now in the interim, you know, Noah will get his in 1556, but it's also more than 490 years from 874 to 1556. So, you know, I haven't completely worked that out, because he'd be the only guy in history who got 2 back-to-back 490-year awards. But, you know, if he was mature in 1177, then, you know, 490 years later, he'd have still been mature. I mean, didn't have to be, could have lost it. But he was, because the flood doesn't occur until here. Alright, so it's Methuselah who's carrying history at that point, from 1177 to the flood. Now, Enoch's 1,000, as we just saw here, Enoch's 1,000 is still operating, but there has to be a 490 underneath, and because of that, time could have ended if Methuselah did not stay mature all along this time. Or, and here's where we get back to Noah, or if Noah, who votes during the voting window, this right here is 1556. Alright? That's when Noah votes. You'll notice that he's voting more than 490 years after Methuselah, because Methuselah gets his award really in 874, which we'll put like about, what, 687, 874. That's actually in here. Okay, so he gets his 874. Oof, I can't draw it well. 874 occurs here. Whoops. Alright. So he gets his before the period ends, and he's carrying time up until the flood. In 1556, however, our dear boy Noah matures, so now he's carrying time also. But Methuselah's going to die in 1656 per his name, so that puts the ball solely in Noah's court. But do you see the interplay? If there hadn't been a Methuselah here, let me do yellow again. If there hadn't been a Methuselah here in 874 from Adam, there wouldn't have been a Noah. So these time periods of the 490s cut off, and this is really important. You can't understand Daniel 9 without it. Okay? You got a 490 deadline here that had to be met, otherwise the 1000 couldn't play. You had a 70-year deadline of voting by believers, or the next 490 can't be granted. Then somebody has got to meet the next 490 in order for this house to complete right here, where I just drew the vertical brown line. Alright, and then that bridges over, okay, right here. And there's got to be somebody, in this case it's Methuselah, carrying it. Meanwhile, there also has to be, I mean, you know, this is maximum handicapping for Satan to get his way. There also has to be somebody who won the 1000 sometime during that first time, carrying time, or this 490 is no good. The one that's here. Okay? This is now dependent on that. You see that? The 490 is being carried by the 1000, and the 1000 is being carried by the 490. And the earliest deadline crashes time. So if people didn't vote here, unfortunately it was Noah, then time would have ended, and it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered that we had the protection from Enoch. This wouldn't have mattered. It would have crashed right here. That's when it would have ended, because if the 70 ended, then that would have ended. That becomes real important for the temple. When the temple crashed, preview of coming attractions, that should have ended time. So we have to go through the accounting to know why it didn't, and that's why Daniel 9 exists. Alright, so you see the interplay? So the first thing is you got to have the 490 complete, then this has to complete, and this has to complete, and also you got to have somebody get a 1000 during that time period. And if they don't, then the earliest one of these deadlines, whether it's the 1000 not being met, or the 490 not being met, or the 70 not being met, that the earliest of the deadlines is going to kill the whole thing. That's how fragile it is. Okay, I'll continue. Now we're going to, I think we're set up so we can go into the Jewish paired houses in the next video.